In the small town of Eldermere, life moved slowly. The streets were lined with old stone roads and cozy wooden houses. For most people, it was peaceful. But for 25-year-old Alara Hayes, it felt like a trap. Every day was the same, working at the town diner and coming home to her tiny apartment above the bookstore. Alara used to have big dreams. She wanted to be a nurse and help people in hospitals, but her plans changed when her mom got really sick. At 18, Alara had to stay home and take care of her mom, who had a rare disease. Over the years, her dream started to feel like it was out of reach. One chilly evening, Alara sat outside the diner, looking at Mount Eldon. It was the tallest mountain in the area, and its snowy top was often hidden in clouds. Her dad had climbed it when he was young and told her stories about how hard it was. "The summit isn't just a place," he used to say. "It's a symbol of what you can overcome." That night, Alara made a big decision. She was going to climb Mount Eldon, not to show off, but to prove to herself that she could still dream and achieve something meaningful. The first step toward the mountain wasn't climbing, it was believing she could do it. Alara spent weeks reading about the climb, saving her tips to buy supplies, and asking for advice from the locals. "You're climbing Eldon?" asked Sam, a hiker who often ate at the diner. "That's a tough one. You'll need to be ready for anything." "I know," Alara said, trying to sound confident, "but I have to do this." Her best friend Mia was more worried. "You've never climbed anything before," she said. "Why take such a big risk?" "Because I need to prove to myself that I can do something hard," Alara replied. Alara started with short hikes around the base of the mountain. Her legs ached, and she got tired quickly, but each hike made her feel a little stronger. Slowly, she began to believe in herself again. Chapter 3: The Climb Begins. On a cold morning in December, Alara stood at the start of the trail. The air was crisp, and the forest smelled like pine trees. Her backpack felt heavy, but she tightened the straps and began walking. At first, the trail wasn't too hard. It twisted through tall trees, and birds chirped overhead. The crunch of her boots on the snow felt steady and calming. Alara felt a spark of hope. Maybe she could do this. But as the trail got steeper, it became harder. The snow turned to ice, and she had to walk carefully to avoid slipping. The cold wind stung her face, and her legs felt like jelly. By the afternoon, dark clouds covered the sky, and she wondered if she had made a mistake. That night, she set up her small tent and lit a fire to stay warm. As she stared at the flames, she thought about giving up. "Why am I even doing this?" she wondered. But then she remembered her dad's words. The summit is a symbol. She realized that this climb wasn't just about the mountain. It was about proving to herself that she could face challenges. The second day was even tougher. The trail became narrow and hugged the edge of a steep cliff. The wind blew so hard it almost knocked her over. Every step felt like a fight, but Alara kept going. Around noon, she met another climber named Grant. He was heading back down because he had hurt his ankle. "Be careful," he warned. "The final stretch is really tough." Alara felt nervous after hearing that. What if she got hurt too? What if she couldn't make it? But she reminded herself of the simple rule she had learned. One step at a time. That night, she looked up at the stars while lying in her sleeping bag. The mountain was cold and scary, but it was also beautiful. For the first time in years, Alara felt truly alive. On the third day, Alara faced the hardest part of the climb. The trail disappeared under thick ice, and she had to rely on her instincts to find her way. Her fingers were numb, her legs ached, and her lungs burned. Every step felt impossible, but she kept going. Hours later, the summit came into view. It looked so far away, but she didn't let herself think about the distance. She focused on taking one small step, then another. Finally, Alara reached the top. Tears filled her eyes as she looked out over the mountains and valleys below. The view was incredible, but the feeling of pride was even greater. She had done it. She had climbed the mountain and proved to herself that she was stronger than she thought. The trip down was easier, but it gave her time to think. She realized that reaching the summit wasn't the most important part of her journey. The real victory was in every small decision she made to keep going when it was hard. When Alara returned to Eldermere, she felt like a new person. She wasn't just a waitress in a small town anymore. She was someone who could face challenges and succeed. Alara started hiking more often, using each climb as a way to stay strong and remind herself of the lessons she'd learned. Take things one step at a time. She also began working toward her dream of becoming a nurse. She signed up for online classes and started saving money for school. The fire inside her had been reignited, and she knew she could achieve anything if she kept moving forward.